A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Our case this week, a young mother shot dead in front of her little girl just as the woman was running to save her life and get refuge in a neighbor's house. That kind neighbor who opened the door for this frightened woman was killed for his good deed. It's a horrific case of domestic violence that escalated into a triple homicide. And it didn't have to happen because that young mother who feared for her life had a restraining order against her estranged husband. And she called police many times to report the escalation of threats, including the discovery of a tracker on her car. The courts failed her. The police failed her. And now, after her death, the sheriff has suspended 8 deputies accused of not taking her multiple reports seriously enough. Meanwhile, the little girl who witnessed all this violence and the murders of her mother and her grandfather is in foster care. Who is going to raise her? Who will help her heal from the loss of her family and the accusations that her own father is allegedly responsible? We're recording this on Friday, March 21st of 2025. Our guest today is Rich McHale, a former police detective from New Jersey, an author, and a dear friend of the show. Rich, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. Always good to see my friends from Jersey. You know, Rich, I know you really want to talk about this case because it's the thing that upsets us all because it was so potentially preventable.
I started my law enforcement career in 1988, and I can tell you, when you begin the ranks, you start as a patrolman, and from before day one of the police academy, I can't stress enough how important they stress to us domestic violence investigations, how dangerous they can be, and I know we're going to get into the details here, but going back to 1988. That's how far back my memory and my professional career goes in the importance of handling domestic violence cases and to conduct them safely and properly so that this kind of thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, you know, our producer, Will, describes this case so perfectly. He writes about this case: the acrimonious uncoupling of Mary and Nathan will unfold like a slow-moving train wreck. That is exactly what happens in this case, especially because there have been so many opportunities to save the mother here. There's one image here that haunts me, and I can't get it out of my head about this case. We're going to get into the details in one second. But it's about the neighbor's security cameras that pick up the gunman and then the little girl. Police say it's the father and his daughter. She's 4 years old. You know how little kids can't keep up, their little feet and their little legs can't keep up with the adult. So she's trailing behind and she's trying to catch up to him. She's barefoot. Her little feet and her little legs can't keep up with him. And she's telling her father, this is according to police, telling her father, no, stop. I can't get that haunting image out of my head.
It's horrifying to watch that door cam video on many levels, because you know that there's a tragic end coming for his wife, his estranged wife, Mary, and his daughter's following him, and he's walking along in a nonchalant assassin type fashion, and it's really it's very difficult to watch on many levels.
Yeah. You know, clearly this little girl is pure innocence, and the father, according to police, is nothing but pure evil based on the charges against him. We're talking about a triple homicide in Tamarac, Florida. And this was started as a domestic violence case and ends in this triple homicide. If only police had stopped to listen to this woman's cries for help, multiple cries for help. So the victims here are family or neighbors. 34-year-old Mary Gingles, that's the mom. Her 64-year-old father, David Ponzer, and Her neighbor, Andrew Farron, 36-year-old man who opened the door to Mary as she was fleeing her attacker. She runs, she's banging on doors, and he let her in. And for being a good and kind human being, he gets killed. So initially, when police get there, not only do they have a triple homicide that they're investigating, but the potential abduction of a child because Seraphine is missing. So they put out an Amber Alert, and we'll explain how they eventually find her dad, track him down to a local parking lot, and Seraphine is okay. But can we even use that word? I mean, I suppose I can't say unharmed. I don't even know if I can say safe. All I can say is she's alive.
And we don't know, we won't know for years to come the potential post-traumatic stress that that girl has endured. It's going to have some effect on her. We honestly won't know for years to come.
No. And as I said at the top, she's being taken care of by a foster family. Look, there are little angels on earth, these foster families, right? Most of them do amazing work and save children and take them in. But
the charge of kidnapping comes from they were married and separated and a pending divorce order. And in addition to that, there was a temporary restraining order barring contact of him with his what they call in the courts estranged wife, meaning there's a separation and they're not getting along. And part of restraining orders it's called a no contact order, meaning you can't have you can't email the person, you can't call them, you can't text them, and any form of that is a violation of the order. As part of the order, a judge, if there's children involved, will say the female gets the mother gets temporary custody of the child. So in this case, that is what happened. And Nathan takes his daughter from the crime scene and drives away with her. And that's where they're getting the charge kidnapping. He did not have lawful custody of his daughter at the time, and she shouldn't have been with him when he drove away with her.
Yeah, Mary called multiple times whenever he allegedly violated these orders. And let me ask you that as a police officer, Rich. So if I call the police and I say, look, there's a current violation on a no contact or a restraining order, is that actionable by the police? Is it likely that police should respond to one of these calls from Mary?
They did come out to the backpack. They did come out. And at that time, she had just, I guess, a month prior, September, dropped the restraining order. So if he had contact with her, leaving the backpack there, he technically is not violating the order. Police did go out numerous times, as you're asking in the question. There's as many as 14 contacts with police, and that's where I'm saying there's too many incidents with him and giving him repeat opportunities to have access to her.
Yeah, it's really, really complicated, really complicated. When it comes to money, you never want to learn lessons the hard way. And that brings us to today's sponsor, Acorns. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing in your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money that you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. You also don't need a ton of time. You can create your Acorns account and start investing in just 5 minutes. Investing is something that's very easy to pull off. I know it is one of those things that you think, oh, I'll just figure that out next month. But with Acorns, it's easy to do it right now. Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/truecrime or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorn Advisors LLC is an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/truecrime. A little background here on Nathan and Mary. They married about 2 years after meeting in the Army. They married in 2018. Nathan and Mary both served in the Signal Corps of the Army. I had to look that up. I didn't know what the Signal Corps was. I'm sure many of you do because you're so well educated. But the Signal Corps is a branch of the Army responsible for creating and managing the systems of communications and information, which is interesting because ultimately Nathan continues doing that kind of work as a private contractor.
On the battlefield, you need to communicate between units and the headquarters. And they do a lot of intercepting of signals from the bad guy. That's the Signal Corps, the technology on the battlefield.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I had to look it up. So they each reached the rank of captain before they left the Army. They moved to Germany together, and that's where their daughter, Seraphine, was born in August of 2020. And then sometime around 2023, they moved back to the United States and they settled in Florida. So clearly, this is about the time things start to dissolve. So much of what we're discussing has been documented in court filings and in 911 calls and other police reports. So as Rich and I just described, the complexity of so many of Mary's calls to police, some investigations, not full action, who dropped the ball, who could have saved Mary, all clearly still under investigation, but too late for Mary and her father and her neighbor. Obviously, it's too late now. So Mary filed a petition for the dissolution of marriage in February of 2024. Mary said that the relationship was irrevocably broken. It appears that Nathan was very controlling, as you said, Rich, but very controlling with things also like money. He wouldn't, according to these court filings, let their daughter go to preschool. And Mary was only allowed to go to the park with Seraphine, and that he had about 20 weapons, many with silencers, according to Mary's court filings. She claimed that Nathan was abusive to her and to the child. In these court filings, she said that he had no problems yelling out, and for those of you, excuse me, I'm just quoting from the court records here, that in front of their child, he would call the mother a, quote, dumb bitch. He struck the mother. He dragged the mother. He would, again, according to court filings, Mary would said that Nathan would even shove the little girl off his lap or slap her off the couch. And then he would complain that the little girl was not affectionate with him. Man's got some serious problems, because I could tell him why.
And part of that controlling behavior you're talking about, and violent behavior, completely unacceptable, by the way, from as far as I'm concerned. He earned a lot of money as a defense contractor. The newspaper reports he had a $160,000 job as this defense contractor. So he's bringing the money in. They live in a $500,000 home. In one of the articles, it says it's a leased home, but still, it's a 2-story, beautiful house in a very nice, quaint, quiet neighborhood. It's about 14 miles northwest of Fort Lauderdale area and a residential section of Broward County. So she was living a good life. And I guess his explanation, or the need to control her, is that he's giving her this life and that she should just be quiet and take it. And
of course, there's no way that this was acceptable. And of course, and Mary is capable and educated. She was a captain as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So things did get quite difficult, obviously. I mean, there were several points that were very dangerous, but Mary recounts one in her court filing. She said there was an incident in February of 2024. She claims that Nathan was up all night snorting Adderall and was engaging in odd behavior. He was on a bender, that he made up a song that he kept singing about how, this is a song that he made up saying that he was going to kill Mary and get away with it and that no one would find her body. It's And she writes in the court filing, I live in constant fear of my husband.
When there's a separation and ultimately a divorce, there's things said out of anger back and forth to each other. None of them are okay. No, I'm not justifying any of that, but that is where all that spewing, all that hate is coming from. Some more about him is that he was a respected person in the community. He knew the local law enforcement, and not that he asked them to give him favors, but I'm sure, having a upper class of white collar type of career field, that he was looked up to, from local law enforcement, always having friendly conversation. So when they do come out and interact with him and his wife, I'm sure, not that they gave him favor, but that they didn't see him for the animal and psychopath that he ultimately exposes here.
Oh, so I guess they're looking at him as a former military captain. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So is Mary.
Yeah.
So is Mary, right?
But if she's not, out front speaking with law enforcement, when she's not calling them for help, they don't see the two of them as these active, upstanding citizens, and they just see his face out front.
But I will say this. I did listen to some of the 911 calls and other calls to police. And the one thing about Mary, and some people have criticized her for it, and, I don't believe in criticizing the victim here. Mary's tone and voice is very calm, is very gentle. When you look at her picture and you look at her eyes, you can see the kindness in Mary. So some people dared to criticize her for maybe not being tough enough or frantic enough. You know what? A woman tells you quite calmly and with great detail what is going on. And because she doesn't sound like a shrew, we're not going to take her seriously. It's just, please, no matter what, the poor victim in all of this will always be criticized.
In my training and in my experience, we were never taught to assess the level of fear, anger, concern in the victim. If the victim said it happened, we were to believe them unless it was shown otherwise. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and that never should have been the case from law enforcement. If she's coming across in a calm tone, that they should have taken it as a non-threatening way. She's saying these threats are there, and she believes he's going to do something. I mean, they should have acted on that. Absolutely. And the sheriff, as you indicated earlier, even admitted that fault by his office, by multiple members of the sheriff's department.
Investigators have confirmed that the Broward County Sheriff's Department received 14 calls or contacts from Mary between February 2024 and January of 2025. So 14 times she reaches out to police over a year. And of course, the last one was shortly before her death. Based on the initial investigation of the sheriff, it does not appear that at any one of these points that the husband was taken into custody or anything like that on these alleged violations.
Never.
So that is obviously something that's being investigated now. Who knew what actions were taken, and what decisions were made. And then they will figure out who and what ultimately is held responsible. But again, from my perspective, all too little too late, unless this helps future Marys. The next Mary who calls in calmly and says, there's a tracker on my car.
In reference to the law enforcement aspect of this case, I just want to touch on responsibility for a second. We have something as a public servant, something that's called nonfeasance, misfeasance, and malfeasance. And basically, they are levels of responsibility. Nonfeasance would be, feasance is a French word meaning action. So nonfeasance means you didn't take action that maybe you should have. Misfeasance is taking an action, but maybe by mistake or the inappropriate action, not intentionally trying to do wrong, but your actions cause further harm to a victim or victims. Then the worst and the most serious is malfeasance, where you intentionally do or don't do something as part of your job as a public servant to protect the victim or help a victim in a case. 3 levels of culpability or responsibility that we have not over our head is that come with our responsibility to do our job. And that is what they'll look at in a civil suit, and potentially, like I said earlier, is if any of these officers did anything intentionally to not help her, they potentially could be looking at criminal charges in addition to losing their jobs. Very serious incident, investigation, and potential consequences for this tragic event.
So just to keep on the timeline here for everyone that's following. So multiple calls over the course of a year. Then in October 2024, Mary discovers a tracker on her vehicle that she said was placed by Nathan. Now, the reason she thought this, and this is what she told police and she told her attorney, was because she initially found a receipt for a tracker. She told her attorney, and her attorney said, sweep the car and see if you can find it. And she finds a tracker. So from their perspective, receipt for tracker, I find a tracker, must be the same one. So again, all of this in court records. And, that is serious. Then there's the whole backpack thing that, again, was something that happened 6 weeks before her fatal shooting, was the whole backpack incident that you described. So according to a 911 call made on December 29th, okay, now we're into December of 2024, that's when Mary tells police about the backpack. So remember, October, tracker. December, the backpack that she found that she was afraid was a kill bag. So, and remember how I said Mary was very calm in these calls? She even says to police when she's talking about the backpack, this is not an emergency. And she's almost apologizing and saying, I don't want to take up, valuable police time. Here is a woman with so much respect and regard for law enforcement, so polite, if you will. I guess maybe they just didn't know what to do with someone so kind and respectful.
Yeah, and part of what the sheriff is going to investigate or is investigating is the second restraining order as a result of the tracker incident. He obviously lives at another location, and the sheriffs make contact with him because they have to go in and seize his weapons. They have a court order from the judge that all of the weapons that they seized in the first restraining order gave back to him in September. Now they have to go and re-seize, and there is a delay in doing that. So that's on the law enforcement, where they should have taken possession of all of his firearms. And the whole reason that we do that is so that this guy can't harm his spouse.
Right.
Or anyone for that matter, until the situation is rectified. That's the whole purpose of the order. Mm-hmm. And that is where the failure in the system let her down, and actually all 3 victims. And the community is suffering from this.
Everyone is suffering. And again, just following the timeline and Mary's polite persistence here. So she calls on the end of December 29th, to talk about the backpack, right? And to be very polite. And, I just want to talk to you about it. This is what I found. I'm kind of concerned. She follows up January 10th. She follows up. She calls again to ask the Broward County Sheriff's Office, will they please pursue a breaking and entering charge against Nathan? Because he didn't, since they were already separated, she believed because of the backpack incident, at the very least, they should be pursuing the breaking and entering, right? And she has the evidence on her video camera. So, and then she brings up the tracker, from her previous calls. And she kept saying to police, this should be a fairly easy case, she's telling them.
There are a lot of telltale signs that there was imminent danger. And that's where the sheriff's investigation is going to reveal not only mistakes, but errors and potentially criminal actions on the part of the officers for failing to do the right thing, failing to do their job. Our job is to protect the public. And if we don't do our job or intentionally don't do our job, we are really putting ourselves out there on the criminal side of the law.
Yeah,
that's absolutely. Our job. Our job is public safety. That is our main purpose, public safety. And if we can't do that, we shouldn't be doing the job.
So now we get to the morning of February 16th. This is more than a month after Mary's follow-up call. Please do something. I mean, can't you pick him up for breaking and entering into my house? And this is when Nathan does the unthinkable, according to investigators. He shows up at 6 a.m. As you described. He first kills Mary's father, who's 64 years old. David
on the
Ponzer.
Back porch drinking coffee.
Drinking coffee. They said he was still holding onto the coffee cup when they found him, when they found his body.
A disgrace, absolute disgrace.
Awful, awful. So when Mary sees what's happened to her father, she makes a run for it. As we've described this chilling video, she's trying to get into neighbors' homes. You see him very calmly walking, but at a clip, and the little one, Serafina, can't even keep up with him. Just heartbreaking. So she, as we said, she finally gets let in by Andrew Farron. Poor Andrew Farron gets murdered along with Mary. Grandpa's already dead. And, the neighbors are calling 911 because they've heard all these shots. And when they arrive at Mary's house, they find the grandfather, dead. And he has been shot in the head. Now, and here's, my God, Rich, it's as if, could it be any bigger? It's like a neon sign right there in the kitchen, on the counter, the domestic violence injunction order against Nathan.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of major red flags that, I want to say the sheriff's going to find out, but it's too late. I mean, we have 3 victims. They're already dead. Right. Doesn't bring them back. So, of course, police know who they're looking for based on the injunction. Father's dead, Mary's dead, the child is missing. Now, she was ultimately found. Remember, we said there was an Amber Alert for the little girl because he didn't have custody. Plus, he's the prime suspect at this point. Nathan is. So they find his vehicle outside a Walmart in North Lauderdale. And that's when Serafina is recovered. Nathan is arrested. So after the fatal shootings, police say that divers found a semi-automatic handgun with a silencer from a nearby lake. It's interesting how they knew to look for that. I'm sure someone picked up something or a camera picked up something as they were trailing him, right? They're looking for his car and they ultimately find him. So they've confiscated that. They believe that they have recovered the murder weapon. We'll know more as all of the forensics come in here. So it's just, what is amazing is when they confiscate the other weapons that Nathan has in his residence, they also find a copy of the domestic violence injunction. I mean, come on. It's everywhere. I can't stress enough, when we go through our annual training as police officers, we have New Jersey Attorney General guidelines and vehicle pursuits and domestic violence are 2 huge ones. We review the material and we have to sign off that we reviewed any updates to the law. So the state of New Jersey every year is reminding its officers, and I'm sure the same is in Florida as well, across the country. I'm going back to the 90s, so I know countrywide law enforcement takes this domestic violence investigations very seriously. So this is not anything new and not something the officers, wouldn't have known about or how to handle. We all receive proper training on this type of investigation and to take it all very seriously.
Yeah. So at a news conference after the triple homicide, Sheriff Gregory Toney acknowledged that mistakes were made by his department. He said, quote, "This death is on my watch. I am basically saying we had a chance to save your loved one's life and we failed." I will give him this. Most of the time, who's ever in charge, whether it's a county, I don't know, a police department, the DA's office, the courts, they're usually like, "Oh, we're so sorry, but yeah, we'll investigate." I will at least give this sheriff credit for owning it, saying we failed and it happened on our watch, and taking some swift action, even though it doesn't bring Mary back. But most of the time it's like, "Oh no, we're going to get sued, so we can't say anything." You know what? You're going to get sued no matter what. So at least be a little moral and human about it.
Yeah, this guy, the sheriff, has a PhD. He's obviously been through a lot of schooling, a lot of studies, and I'm sure on subjects like this, and accountability is going to be one of those attributes that he picked up through his training. Just a very, very sad story all the way around, and it affects the community, law enforcement involved. One thing I wanted to say is, going back to my early days in law enforcement, there are houses in neighborhoods where we get called there all the time. And it's because the husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever relationship, are always fighting with each other. But when we go there, the victim just wants it to stop. They don't want us to remove the actor. In most cases, it's the man, but I don't want to prejudge. But in most cases, it's the man, and the wife, says, just get him out of here, or whatever the case may be. But if we have a directive that if we see injuries on the victim, it's an automatic arrest. We don't have the discretion anymore like they used to. If you have a black eye and we come to your house, we are arresting the other part of that relationship or argument, whether it's a man or woman, whatever the case may be. And we don't have any choice in the matter. But the victim, in a lot of cases, won't want us to take them away. That is their source of income. That's the person that runs the house normally.
And it could also be the person that they are in love with. Right. These are very complicated, manipulative relationships, controlling. Yeah. It's just, it's a frightening situation. The whole thing is very frightening. And, the thing with Mary is, it's just so tragic.
There was a cycle of behavior there that they just couldn't break.
But I feel she was so clear with her words. She called the police. She was detailed in her descriptions. She had alleged evidence. It's, she didn't call screaming at the top of her lungs. She wanted the police to pay attention. And she couldn't, what more could this woman have done?
Yeah, law enforcement let her down. Like I said, we are there to protect the public, and if we don't do that, we shouldn't be there.
So the fallout has been that Sheriff Toney suspended 8 deputies with pay pending an investigation. The captain, who was the head of the Tamarac district where Mary lived, has been demoted from their position, and Sheriff Toney has threatened disciplinary actions against the authorities for their failure to intervene and save Mary. So we'll see what happens with that and what the follow-up is, and really will anyone take action. And then as for Nathan, so Nathan has been indicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of child abuse, 1 count of kidnapping, and 1 count related to violating a domestic violence injunction. Oh, now they come up with that charge. Maybe he should have been charged with that before Mary was slaughtered. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. There's no excuse for it. And I'm sure although it's too late, but they're piling the charges on everyone that does apply in this case.
Yeah.
To make sure that he doesn't see the light of day, potentially lose his life as a result of it.
Yeah, and I do see, sometimes I get upset when I see that prosecutors don't fully charge the person and they'll let maybe the lesser charges go. And I feel like, you know what? All these things were allegedly inflicted on this victim, right, by this perpetrator. And I feel like you need to respect the victim and charge everything. You may think it's like, oh, well, why would we charge on this now? We're really getting them on the big. No. You need to acknowledge all of the things that were done to this person and try and get justice for all of the things that were done to this human being. That's how I feel about it.
And I'm sure it's in the state of Florida too, but I know in New Jersey, along with mandatory arrest, there's no remanding or downgrading charges of domestic violence. Even the judge's hands in our state are tied, so to speak, and not allowing this to happen to where they keep the cycle of violence going. They don't let the charges just go away, so they have to face them. And I know in law enforcement, when we're off duty involved in it, we potentially could lose our career because if we're convicted of the charge as part of a domestic dispute and weapons are involved, we can't carry our firearms. So we lose our career. So it's a very serious thing to investigate in the state of New Jersey. And I'm sure Florida is the same as well.
Mm-hmm. So Nathan Gingles has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. And there is some strong evidence, as we have shared today. But of course, innocent until proven guilty. Prosecutors have indicated that they will seek the death penalty if this case goes to trial. We'll see. Now, poor Seraphine, as we've said, the tiniest little victim here. This poor little girl remains in foster care. She is in the protective care of the state of Florida. And lawyers and everybody, they're all trying to figure out now, what do we do with Seraphine? Her mother is murdered. Grandfather is dead. Father is charged with killing them. So one possibility is maybe placing the girl with Mary's sister who lives in Texas. And everyone's trying to figure out, is that the best fit? Is that the best place? Is there another relative? I don't know.
The state of Florida will have a hearing in front of a judge, and the judge, obviously, hearing all of the information, will hopefully make the best decision for the girl.
Yeah. She needs to be safe. She needs to be loved. And she needs professional assistance to process the level of violence, this loss, and the amount of grief that she will process for the rest of her life.
We won't know for years to come, when she's an adult, what effect this incident will have on her. And, it's tragic. The damage will go on for years to come.
Well, let's hope that the authorities in Florida do the right thing here, do right by Mary Gingles. It is time for our comment section. These are the crime cases you all are talking about on social media. And here's our producer, Will Updike. Hey, Will.
Hey, Anna. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, Rich. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Nice to see you as well.
So in this week's case, we have a tale of bittersweet revenge. This one's a little bit different than our main case, but this case comes out of Deltona, Florida, where a teen looking to get back at her ex vandalized what she thought was his car, only to realize it was a stranger's vehicle. Yeah, yikes. So this one unfolded after deputies with the Volusia County Sheriff's Office responded to a report of vandalism at around 2:30 a.m. So officers arrive on the scene. They find a 16-year-old female suspect in a hoodie and sweatpants kind of walking away from the scene here. Authorities naturally question her. She claimed that she wasn't involved. However, the yellow spray paint that had covered the woman from head to toe said a little differently, according to police. There's even kind of a funny little piece of the body cam footage where one of the deputies quips, This one's not involved, but she has yellow head paint. She has yellow paint from head to toe. So yeah, not looking great. But along with this suspect, there was a vehicle, a Suzuki, near the scene of the crime, where officers also found an 18-year-old female who has been identified as Evelina Fabianski in the driver's seat. There were also a couple of open bottles of Four Loko in the car. Yes, they said bottles in the report. I'm only familiar with them being in cans, but who knows what they're doing over there in Florida. Now, okay, so police, they have the alcohol here. They have 2 teens in this vehicle. The alleged spray paint on everything. So they take both of these women into custody. And Evelina here, the older of the 2 teen girls, allegedly tells police that she was upset with her ex for owing her nearly $700. So she wanted to get revenge. She goes to his house and spray paints this car that's in front of it. And she allegedly had recruited this 16-year-old in the vandalism. And also they apparently threw a couple of eggs at the vehicle, which, I mean,
oh my gosh, with the price of eggs, are you crazy?
Come on. I've been thinking about that because, like,
that's treason right there.
Like as kids, egging a house was something. There's no way you're doing that now. Eggs are $1 an egg. It'd have to be pretty serious for me to be that mad to throw my own money at it. Anyways, so how this got reported to police was one of the observants of the house woke up in the early hours of the morning. They see the 2 teens. They approach them. They say, "Hey, what's going on here?" The woman who lived at the house allegedly said that one of the teens identified themselves as Evelina here and asked the woman actually like where her son was. And the woman who's observing all this is not going to get into it, goes back into her house. And then so we have these 2 picked up. And the owner of the vehicle, the kicker of it all is they just parked their car across the street because of the time they had gotten home that day. They got home around 3 p.m. They thought it'd be fine to just park their car on the other side of the street, walk home, and then
that'll show them.
Ends up, according to the owner, it ends up being like $5,000 in damage. So no small amount here. Now, both teens have been arrested for criminal mischief over $1,000. Now, according to reports, cops also allegedly found 33.8 grams of marijuana, along with a pipe, an empty bottle of Crown Royal inside the car. And they also allegedly discovered this can of yellow spray paint in the trunk, which seems to be what was used to tag up this Infiniti. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with that. But yeah, I just, you would think that you would know your boyfriend's car. I guess right. It's just like where I'm at with all of this. Like, I don't know how you obviously know where he lives. But you don't know like what car he drives. I don't know. It just seems ill-advised.
In the heat of things, sometimes your judgment and sometimes your vision are blurred or misconstrued. In the law enforcement world, we don't want to hurt the younger community, with prosecution. However, there has to be a concern for this young lady that she understands there's consequences for her actions, so that when she's later in life is not tries to do something even more destructive out of anger because somebody owes her money. So that's the serious side of this. The humorous sad part is she doesn't even get the actual revenge that she was after, and someone else's vehicle who's uninvolved altogether has to suffer the consequences of the mischief.
Not that we're suggesting that revenge is okay
at all, and not at all. Not at all.
It just makes this case that much worse because you're in a rage, you're furious, you're young, you're not thinking straight, not making the best decisions, but there really was this neighbor that had absolutely nothing to do with anything with anyone whose car has been damaged, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a higher power's word to this lady. Hey, look, you really messed up, in addition to whatever criminal consequences she may face or not face for fines or whatever it may be, that there's a higher power saying, hey, you can't do this. And I'm heaping this embarrassment on you to teach you this lesson for the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I mean, because both of the suspects are, still in their teen years. A lot of time to figure stuff out. Maybe this could end up being a learning experience. Got a lot of comments on this one. D. Brown summed this one up pretty well. They said blind fury, which is absolutely what it feels like. I can imagine, though, being a teen, wanting that $700. I get it. But as we said,
there's consequences, man. You can't do that.
Yeah. As we said, not worth it. Never worth it. Carrie C doesn't have a lot of sympathy for the neighbor. They said, as an Infinity driver, he probably still deserved it, which
brutal.
I got to be honest.
My goodness.
I've never seen, I've never had a negative experience really with an Infinity driver. There's the stereotypical things about certain drivers, like BMW drivers don't know how to use a turn signal. And there's things.
You're so funny. There are things.
I don't think it's the driver. I think it's our perception that they think they're too good for everyone else because they just because they own those type vehicles.
They're very comfortable. Sometimes you just want to be comfortable. Especially if you have a lot of driving to do.
Speaking from the owner of a 2018 BMW myself.
I'm sure you use your turn signal, Rich.
All the time, whether I need it or not. I stick my hand out even. And having spoken to you today, I'm going to make sure I park in the right spot from now on.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught in front of a neighbor's house. No. We got Sherry D brings up a great point. They said no man is worth going to jail for. And I just kind of feel like we could reiterate that about a lot of cases on this show. A lot of romantic involvements. This person probably isn't worth going to jail for. Maybe consider.
Right, she's out $700. Right. Yeah. Not getting that back. I mean, I suppose it's possible he may pay her. I don't know. Right. But so you're still out the $700. Now you've got the liability of the $5,000 in damages for the vehicle and any potential criminal prosecution and fines associated with that. How are you ahead on this?
Yeah.
Plus, we're talking about it on social media.
And it wasn't even the right car. You know what I mean? In my worst of times, I could see maybe that revenge was worth it. Again, not condoning any sort of revenge, but in this case, definitely not.
That's the work of a higher power.
Absolutely. Jennifer P. also summed this one up well. They said you play stupid games and win stupid prizes, which is, a mantra.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a mantra I always try to keep in mind because, when you're thinking of doing something stupid, you should realize that the outcome is going to be stupid regardless.
Can I share some advice here? This was given to
Absolutely.
me, and it's hard, but I get it. It's been told many times. You can fantasize about tagging the car. You can fantasize about breaking their windows. You play it all out in your head. Just don't act on it. Play it out.
Yes.
Just let it live in here,
Write the letter. Don't send it.
Yes.
And then we'll close this one out with a comment from Anarchy Never Dies. Great name. They said, I get confused about cars too. Not enough to vandalize the wrong one, but I've sure almost opened other people's doors at the grocery store thinking it was my car, which, hey, who hasn't been there before, accidentally pulled on a car door handle and then oh no. I have a very small dog. He's a teacup terrier and he loves the car. He's obsessed with the car. So anytime we're walking and there's a car, he wants to get into it. And if someone opens their door within his vicinity, he will hop up into the car.
Oh, how cute.
It's I don't even know if he even thinks it's my car or he just likes the car in general. But been there, happens. Cars can be confusing. A lot of them look similar.
I love that. So I have a few comments of my own. You know how I read your comments and I try to respond as best I can on YouTube. And whenever I get a moment, I'll take a screenshot and just remind myself, I want to thank you on the podcast, because sometimes only you will read my comment, but I want to be able to share your comments. And I have to share this one because I think it's just so sweet. So this is from Rachel Cummings 8257. I've been watching this channel since it started 9 years ago. Jeez Louise, that long? Isn't that crazy? I remember the videos, and she went on and on and on. She says, it's a part of my daily life. And I absolutely love Anna's podcast every week. I think I would faint if Anna said hello.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So I did say
Hope you
hello.
don't listen to this while you're driving.
Do not faint. Do not faint. Do not faint. But I wanted to thank you for that. And she goes on to say, whether I'm doing the wash, making the kids' school lunches, or driving in the car, I will never miss true crime news.
You got a fan for life.
Isn't that the nicest thing anyone could write?
Heck yeah.
It is.
It really is. So please don't faint. But I just wanted to acknowledge you and know I really do try and read your comments. It really touches my heart. And just one more. This is somewhat.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anna, you are great on True Crime News as a host. I watch your videos with the greatest interest. Thank you from Romania. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
We're international here.
Okay.
Thank you. That's from Sebastian Martinescu, 1987.
Wow.
Thank
We
you.
really do have the best fans. Thank
We have
you
the best.
to everyone who watches and listens. If Anna does, in fact, go through your comments. If you want to do that, you could do that over on our YouTube page. You can also listen to this wherever you get your podcast, or you can reach out to us on social media, anywhere at My True Crime News. But that'll do it for this week's comment section. Thank you so much. And until next week, don't do crime.
Rich, it's been such a pleasure to see you. Always interesting. I love to have, a variety of guests with different opinions, different perspectives. I know that many of you are familiar with Rich because of his devotion to an unsolved case from New Jersey about a little boy who was 11 years old when he disappeared, Mark Heimbaugh. You've written a book about it. And I know you talk to a lot of groups, and you do not give up. Is there any update on the disappearance of Mark Heimbaugh?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm honored to be a guest on the show, and thank you for thinking on me and mentioning Mark's case. Mark Heimbaugh was abducted November 25th of 1991. I can't give details, but I can tell you that I personally have received multiple tips since the book came out, December of 21. And recently, there was one of a sighting of Mark Heimbaugh in the Minnesota area around 1997, which would have been after the date of the crime. They've lost contact, obviously. So that's the kind of information that has to get checked out. Once I give it to the prosecutor's office, I lose control of it, of the source of the information and where it goes in the pipeline, but I make sure that it gets looked into. And so we still get tips. Are we on the verge of making an arrest? If they are, I wouldn't know. They don't tell me that. Hopefully someday you and I both know that we would like to see closure for Mark as an 11-year-old boy, for Maureen Heimbaugh, who now lives in Florida. His father lives in the Vermont area, and he also has a brother, Matthew, who still lives in New Jersey and is doing well for himself as an adult. But for the not just them, but the extended Heimbaugh family and the community, you are a news reporter, and this tugs at your heartstrings like anyone else. I mean, it's devastating, and we need to do the right thing for that boy, in my mind.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I was there the day he disappeared. It was a cold Monday right before Thanksgiving. And I covered this case. It's the reason you and I have, started working together. And we also have gotten some wonderful support from Luis Bolaños, who is a regular former homicide investigator.
Luis done a lot of work. Yeah.
And we try so hard and pass it along to authorities. I say this all the time. I don't know if the will is there to solve the case.
Well, one thing too, you did it was like an hour and a half long show with Maureen and I several years ago. And I thank you for that. I thank your listeners for their interest in the case and their input following the podcast. And, we do this to keep his name out there so that nobody forgets. And if somebody does know something, that they come forward and help with the case. I know it's a question you'll ask. Where is Mark is the name of the book, and you can get that on Amazon. And then I have a website. It's called whereismark.com. And that's two ways to get the book and read up on the story.
And reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you've got a tip,
anyone with information, I will immediately get it to the prosecutor's office.
I know you do. Oh, well, hold on. This is a picture of Mike Williams. He had been missing for 17 years out of Tallahassee, Florida. You just never know when a case will be solved. This case was solved. I keep Mike's photo. This button is from his trial that I went to. I keep this on my desk as a reminder that there is hope for all of the missing and for all of the unsolved murders. I believe that in my heart. Not saying it's easy, but that is why Mike is on my desk when I do my podcasts. To remind me of hope.
We describe missing people as they vanish, but the reality is you don't vanish. Something happened to that person. And in most cases, it's an abduction type scenario. Somebody knows, and maybe several people know that we're either involved or saw it or heard from the person that did it. And that's the kind of information. We're 33 years into the Heimball case, and someone out there knows what happened and may have been involved.
Yep. So
for Mark and his family's sake, we ask you to come forward.
Yeah. And I have hope. I do. I have hope. Rich, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. You can find this podcast, all our podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where we have this vibrant community where you can leave your comments, your thoughts, your theories. I try my best to read as many as I can and respond to as many as I can. We're easy to find at My True Crime News. You can find me at Anna G News, Anna with one N. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. See you next time, everyone.